Once again, good afternoon and welcome to our Google Suite Google Slides course. My name is Jamie. I'm a librarian with the Plano Public Library, and we also have Nikki, another Plano Library staff member, joining us to help facilitate the chat today. Before we begin with our course content, I do need to let you know about some ground rules that we've set up for today's program. You will be muted during this class and we have your video blocked, so you will only see my screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer, including your Google Drive. You are welcome to ask questions during today's program. You should see an icon at the bottom of your screen that says chat. Click on that to open the chat window. Chat is set to be seen by library staff only. Please note that any inappropriate comments will cause your immediate removal from the class today. Now, in regards to those questions, we may answer you in the chat box. We might hold the question to the end of the program, or we might go ahead and ask the question at the time if it is pressing. In the reminder email for this class, there is a link for the course handouts with additional information. A recording of today's class will also be sent out in a few days, so if you would like to watch today's class and then practice after getting the recording, that is also an option. If you would like to follow along with your own Google account, you may, but please do keep in mind that it will be difficult for us to give one-on-one assistance or troubleshoot during today's class. However, I will try to take it slow in case you are practicing along with me, so thank you in advance for your patience. Now that we've got all of those details out of the way, let's go ahead and switch over to our Google Drive. Now, the goal for today's class is to learn how to share information using Google's free presentation application, Google Slides. You can use Google Slides to create and share your own presentations similar to working in a program like Microsoft PowerPoint. Common uses include things like business presentations, school projects, and even digital photo albums. Now, for our class today, we're going to have three main objectives. First, we're going to explore existing presentation templates, and we're going to do that to create a simple informational guide to the products that our imaginary company offers. Then we're going to use a blank presentation template to create a year-end recap presentation, which will let us walk through some of the more advanced features that you can use to customize your content. And finally, we'll look at how to present and collaborate with that finished presentation. I'll be accessing everything that we need today from my Google Drive account. Now remember, your work will save automatically in the cloud while you're working, so you don't have to worry about hitting save at all during today's class. The documents that you're creating will be accessible from any device with internet access in the future. So let's get started. Google offers several free templates that we can use to create presentations. And you can either use these exactly as they appear or make changes based on your specific needs. It's a great way for you to get started with Google Slides and explore some of the available features. And we'll start by using an existing template to create that informational guide. So up here in the top left-hand corner, I'm just going to click where it says New, and I will scroll down to Google Slides. And you'll see that little arrow gives me the option to choose either blank presentation or from a template. And I'm going to go ahead and choose that from a template option. And this pulls up the template menu in a separate window. And I'm just going to scroll through these. You'll see that Google has them grouped kind of by different things, personal, work presentations. And I'm going to stay right up here in the personal and just choose that recipe book template. We'll go ahead and double click on that to open. And that will open up that template for us. Now, before we get into actually editing this content, let's take just a moment to review some of the menu and toolbar features that are available to you. Google Slides uses a menu system with a shortcut toolbar similar to what you'll see if you've worked in Google Docs or Google Sheets, or what you might find in a program like PowerPoint if you were using a desktop application. Now, those menus contain your different commands grouped by function. So it's where you've got your file, edit, view, insert, etc. across the top. Clicking on any of those will show you that full list of options. And this is where you can find options to do things like insert content, format that content, add slides, arrange the order of things, anything like that. Right underneath that is what is called the shortcut toolbar. And what that does is it gives you some buttons for frequently used commands like adding a slide or changing the layout. Okay, the first thing I want to do with my presentation here is go ahead and rename the file. So up in the top left corner where it says recipe book, I'm just going to click there and I'm going to add my business name, Sweet Treats, right in there to update that file name. Now, the next thing I want to do is update my title slide. And I'm going to go ahead and close this themes menu to get it out of the way, just so we have a little bit more of a workspace. So what I'm going to do is just click here on my title, highlight it, and change it from simple snacks to sweet treats. And then underneath to edit that subtitle, same thing. I'm just going to click, highlight, and I'm going to add my company tagline in there, making sweet dreams come true. And once I click off of that, those changes are saved. Now I can get to the next slide a couple of different ways. I can use the preview pane over here on the left side and just click on the slide, or I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard and press up or down to go through those slides. I don't really need this slide here with about the chef, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it. And again, I have a couple of different options. I can right click and hit delete, or I could hit delete on my keyboard to get rid of that slide. I also don't need this recipe slide, so same thing. I'm going to go ahead and just hit delete to get rid of that slide as well. Do we have any questions so far before we get further into editing our content?
There are no questions in the chat at this time.
Perfect. Let's get into editing some of these slides then. So right here on slide number 3, I've got a great collection of images that I'd like to use to start my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and move that slide up into the second slide. And all I'm going to do is just drag and drop once I've clicked on that slide to reorder it. Now, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and replace the images with my own products. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this top image, and I'm going to click here where it says replace image, and I'm going to go ahead and upload the file from my computer because I downloaded some images earlier that I'm going to use. If you were using your Google Drive, you could choose photos from your Google Drive. You could use your device's camera to take a picture, or you could even link a URL to the picture that you needed. I'm going to look for my image, and I'm just going to put in a lovely image here of my lovely chocolate cakes. Now, if I double click on this image, what you'll see is that it gives me the option to resize it to fit in the box. So I'm just going to drag that down a little bit just so it fits in. And I'm going to drag it up from the bottom a little bit just so it fits in that box that's already there. And I'm going to repeat this process all over again with the rest of the images on this slide. So I'll just take this next one. Once again, Go up to replace image, choose where that file is going to be on your computer, and go ahead and open the image that you need. If you want to edit the sizing, you can double click and just drag your boundaries over so it fits better in that box. We'll go ahead and replace this middle image. Put my cookies in here. And so this saves me a little bit of time just because I'm not having to figure out where I want to put the images. I'm using their existing template and I'm just updating it with the content that works for my presentation. We'll stick that image in there. And I'm just resizing everything just as an example of how that might work. Okay, so we've got all of our images in there, which gives me a good starting point for those slides. Now, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and make some slides for each of these beautiful products that I have outlined. And I'm going to keep using the templates provided to get started. So I'm just going to click here on slide 3. And you'll see it's got my recipe name. It's got space for me to put in some information. So I'm just going to change my recipe name to my product name instead. Once again, I'll just click on that box, highlight my text, and put in what I need. And in this serving information, I'm going to go ahead and change that to my product price, which is $168.95 per case. And then I will go over and put in my recipe information. And I'm just going to replace some text here to describe what my product is like. And you can really put in anything that you needed for whatever you were talking about. In this case, I'm just describing our pastries because that's what my imaginary business is really good at. And we'll delete out some of this other text that I don't need. And I'll put in my different flavors that are available. I've got strawberry, I've got blueberry, I've got peach, and I've got cherry. And that just lets me, again, use an existing template with the formatting and everything that I have without having to figure out what I want that layout to look like. I'm going to do the same thing with slide number 4. And I'm going to go ahead and change some of the information. So the first thing I'm going to do is replace the image. So just like I did in the previous slide, I'll go up to replace image, locate that file on my computer, go ahead and drop it into the slide, and then I'll change my recipe information as well. And this slide is going to be all about our tasty Jelly Belly rolls that are a little bit cheaper than our previous product and are available to you for $79.99 per case. And then I can just share some information about that product as well. And once I have that information put in, I can just click out of that box and I am good to go. Right underneath, I have a third layout that I just don't care for, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that slide. Now, before we make any additional slides, do we have any questions about what we've done so far?
We do. We actually have a question about inserting images. Do you know, is there a way to auto fit the images to the frame, or do you have to always manually drag to fit?
I would have to play around with that a little bit more just because I'm not familiar with an Autofit option when I am replacing an image that already exists. I feel like there should be a way in there somewhere, but I'm not 100% confident on how to do that. So I'll have to look into that and maybe send that out as an update after today's class. I'm sorry.
That is totally okay. That was the only question that we have, though. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so just to reiterate some of the things that we've already done, I'm going to use the existing slides that we have to make some additional slides. And I'm going to use the duplicate slide feature to be able to do that because it's going to keep my formatting and everything the same. So I'm going to right click here on my PandaPie slide and just click duplicate slide. And it very nicely makes me an exact copy. I'm just going to drag that down underneath my Jelly Belly rolls so that I have a little bit of variety in my slide layouts. And then I'm going to go ahead and update the product information as well. In this case, I don't have to edit quite as much because I already have like the per case in there. And I'm just going to update that product description as well. And update those flavors. And then I'm going to do the same thing again and make a duplicate of this Jelly Belly roll slide instead. Right click on the slide, click duplicate, drag and drop it down. And this time I'm going to go ahead and replace that image. We'll do replace image, find the file that we need. This is going to be for my cookies. So put a lovely little cookie jar in there, and I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop a little bit on my image. The other thing you can do with working with images, if you don't want to resize it altogether, is you can drag and drop the picture within the slide frame so that it shows a different part of the picture. So it's kind of like cropping it without having to crop it quite as much. And once again, go ahead and update my product information here as well. Now, if you happen to be like me and accidentally click something that you're not supposed to while working on your slides, Google is lovely and includes that undo button up in your top left corner that you can undo, or you can hit Control-Z on your keyboard to undo the last thing that you did. And that lets you get back to the point before you made whatever mistake you had there. We'll put in our product description. And I'm going to do this duplicating one last time. We'll go back up to my moon pies, duplicate that slide, drag and drop it down. And we'll make my final product slide for my chocolate cream cakes. And we'll update that price as well. Very tasty cakes that are exorbitantly priced at $7.99.95 per case. And we'll update our product description here as well. Oops. You will also notice that Google gives you spelling suggestions, and that just like if you were working in one of the Microsoft products, it'll underline in red and tell you, hey, I'm not really sure what that word is. Would you like to double check the spelling and update it? Which is great for proofreading while you're working. All right, now I've got all 5 of my products in here. And the last thing I want to do is go ahead and update my business information. So I've got this lovely contact slide that I can work with, but I want to go ahead and change, instead of having my green beans here, I'm going to replace my image to my company logo. So once again, I'm just going to click replace image, navigate to where that is on my computer, and put that in. And I'll just put in my business phone number and my business email here. And our business website. And I've got all of that information updated. Now, the last thing that I want to do is make a slight change to the colors on my slides. Now, you might have noticed that this theme has kind of this reddish orangish coral color that doesn't really go with the purple of my logo. And what I want to do is make a change to all of those slides without having to go through every single slide and do that. And I do have the option of doing that with what is called the theme builder. It was previously known as the slide master. So what you'll do is you'll go ahead and click on view, and you're going to click on theme builder. And this pulls up the overall look of my presentation. And I can actually edit my theme colors by choosing colors here in the center. And then I'm just going to choose text and background 1. And I'm going to choose one of the default colors down here. And I like this dark magenta one that's third up from the bottom. Go ahead and apply that. And if I close that, you'll see it made changes to that master. And I can click the little X up there in the top right corner to close out that master. And those colors were updated on all of my slides at once. Now, one final thing I want to cover before we move on to our next section is just the difference between our grid view and our film strip view of our slides. So this film strip view is the default view that we see right now on the screen, with each of the slides going down on the left-hand side, just one after another, and you can click on them and you can navigate through them. You've got that preview pane, and then you've got your main editing window for the majority of your screen. If you click on these little 6 boxes in the bottom left, that will switch over to your grid view. And you can see all of your slides at once, kind of how they're laid out overall. And that's a great way for you to be able to, say, drag and drop your slides around and reorder them, but you can't edit your slide content here. If I tried to make an edit, I would click on that slide and it's going to open back up in that film strip view with my editing pane instead. Are there any questions before we move on to creating an original presentation today?
Right now, there are no questions in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that presentation so that we can try something a little bit more complicated. So let's say there isn't a template that matches your needs, or you want to do a lot of customization. In that case, it may be easier for you to create your own presentation from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and use a blank presentation today to create our year-end recap presentation for our management team. So just like before, we'll go over in that left-hand corner. I'm going to click New. I'll slide down to Google Slides, use that little arrow over, and this time I'm going to choose blank presentation. And that blank presentation is going to open up for me in a new tab. And just like with our template, this is where we're going to edit and update our slides before sharing our presentation. Once again, I'm going to start by renaming my presentation. So I'm just going to click up here where it says Untitled Presentation, and I'm just going to call this one Sweet Treats Year-End Review. Now, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and choose a theme for my presentation. And you'll see the themes menu automatically pops up here on the right and lets me access that. If I had happened to close that, I could just click on theme here on the toolbar and get that window to pop back up again. And I'm going to scroll through these until I find one that I like. I'm going to go with this beach day theme, and we'll go ahead and apply that. I'm going to go ahead and close that themes menu. Now, before I get started, I'm going to use that theme builder once again to make some updates to how my slides display. So we'll go up under View and choose Theme Builder to get into that option. And we'll start by updating my presentation colors. And I'm going to choose that text and background one. And this time I'm just going to demonstrate what it would look like if you did a custom color. So if you're working with your own business and maybe you've got a logo with certain colors in it and you know those color codes, you can apply those in as well. You would just type your color code in. It'll apply those changes there. And you can close the colors menu. Now, let's say I want to update my presentation fonts. I can do that as well. And let's just say I want to change this to a different font. I'll highlight it and I can choose from my font menu. And I'm just going to do this Indie Flower instead, and I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. So I'll go ahead and change the font size up to 25 there. And you'll see it nicely shows me on the slide what it looks like to make sure everything is going to fit. And I can just do this over and over as many times as I need to until I have my slides look the way that I wanted them to. So if I wanted them to have 6 different fonts on them, I could do that. I could do different sizes. If I found once I got further down here that it didn't all fit, I could go back and resize and make something smaller. This is just a really easy way for me to make all of those changes at once and keep the parts of the theme that I like, but customize the parts of the theme that aren't quite working for what I want to do. And we'll go ahead and update that last one. And you can see everything looks like it fits okay on that slide. I think we're good to go on that. I can look at those individual layouts if I wanted to, just to make sure that I like them. Everything looks good here. So once again, I'm going to click that little X in the right corner to close out of that master view. Now I've made those changes and I'm ready to start entering my presentation information. And we're going to start by the title slide, which is just that default slide that comes up to kick everything off. And I want to go ahead and insert in my logo. So this time I'm going to insert an image a little bit differently. I'm going to go up to my insert menu. We'll choose insert, choose image. You have the same choices as if you were replacing an image. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this one that I have saved. And it will nicely drop onto the slide for me. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is click back on this text box that I don't need. I'm going to click on it and just hit delete to get rid of it. I'm going to click back on my image here and just drag up to fill that whole slide. And then I will click to add the subtitle, which is just going to be my 2020 year in review. Click off of that, and I've got that title slide ready to go. All right, do we have any questions so far?
The chat is clear.
All right. So now that we've got a title slide, we're ready to start adding in our content. So I'm going to go ahead and add in an objective slide. And I can do this a couple of different ways. I could do slide and then new slide, or I can use this little plus sign on the toolbar to just do a new slide. I like this layout. It's got a title, it's got body for me to type some things in. So I'm just going to go ahead and update my title just by clicking in that box. We'll put in our objectives, and then I can click underneath that to add text. And I've got all of my font options. Then I'm going to go ahead and just add some bullet points in just to make that stand out a little bit more. And you can just put in whatever information that you wanted as part of your presentation. And we'll put those, add in our engagement. And this is just an example of what a slide would look like if you were just including text information.
Jamie, we do have a quick question about levels on the master, on the theme slide. So what does the word level mean again on theme slides? And how do you know how many levels you'll be needing?
So let me go ahead and go back to that theme builder so I can show you a little bit better. What levels is referring to is if you were having like a bulleted list or a numbered list, and say you had one with subpoint A, B, C. So your first level would be that first line, your second level would be the line underneath it, the third level, the line underneath that, kind of how you indented through your outline. By default, you've got all 9 levels in here, whether or not you use them. So you don't really have to worry about how many levels that you're going to need unless you're doing a lot of work customizing the different fonts and you want different fonts. So I'm going to go back over to our objective slide. So this is all level 1 because it's just that top. Well, let's say I hit enter and hit tab, and you see how that bullet moves over, and this font is a little bit smaller. And so your levels on your theme builder are just saying what it's going to look like as you build an outline. Does that help?
That does. And is it only for text, or can levels be like images or graphs?
Levels in this context is just going to be the text on our slides.
Okay, perfect. That captured all of the question. Thank you, Jamie.
No problem. We'll pop that out. And now we're going to go ahead and add another slide. So I'm going to go ahead and use that little plus sign again and add a new slide. And what they will do here is just default to the last layout that you used. And that might be what you want, but it might not be what you want. So let's say that you want to change how your slide is displaying. In this case, I've shared my objectives, and I think I'd like to share information in another way. So I want to add a video to my presentation to showcase what a finished product might look like. So I'm going to go ahead and change my slide layout by clicking on where it says layout. And here you can see teeny tiny little previews of different slide layouts. And I'm just going to pick the blank layout. And that just gives me a blank slide with nothing on it. I don't have to worry about changing it, deleting it, or getting rid of things I don't need. And now I'm going to go ahead and insert a video. So I'll go up to insert, and this time I'm going to choose video. And you've got a couple of different options here. You can search YouTube. If you have a URL for your video, you can click that. Or if you had a video uploaded in your Google Drive, you could link to that as well. For the sake of today's class, I'm just going to show you what it looks like if you were searching. And we're going to search baking cake. And you'll see it gives me all of these different options. And I'm just going to choose that first one and hit select. And my video has very nicely dropped into my slide. Now, when I insert that video, it automatically brings up a box with some formatting options. And in this case, I don't want to use the entire video because a 6-minute video in the middle of my presentation might be a little bit long. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that clip. And I can do that by just clicking in these boxes that have start. I'll change that to 5 minutes and 10 seconds. And I'll change my ending time to 5 minutes and 29 seconds. And that's going to just trim what shows on the video to just that little piece of the video that I want. You also see you have some choices on your playback. You can choose to play it on a click. So when you click your mouse, when you advance your slide, or you can choose to have it play automatically when you get to that slide. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as play on click. I'm going to close those formatting options and come back over here to my slide. Now I want to go ahead and move this to the center of my slide, and I can do that by just clicking on it and kind of doing a drag and drop. And you'll see these nice little guidelines come up in red, and they make that lovely little X in the center for me. And that just lets me know I've got my video perfectly centered on the slide. It's clipped to what I want. I've got that play button that I would be able to hit play, and it will show just the part of the video that I wanted them to see during this presentation. Now we're going to go ahead and add another slide. So once again, we'll do that new slide. This time it gave me a blank slide because that's what I used last. I'm going to change my layout to the section header. Slides that designate sections are a great way to break up your content and let your audience know what will be coming next. So I'm just going to put one in here to introduce our products. So I've dropped that slide in, and I'm going to add the title, Our Products. Click off, and we've got everything that we need. Now, you might remember that we did some work creating some product slides a minute ago, and I would like to use those slides instead of having to do my work all over again. So to save time, I can actually import the slides that talk about our products from that previous presentation. And I can bring over that information and choose to either use that formatting or the formatting of the presentation I'm working on right now. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and choose File, and then Import Slides. And you should see a list of different presentations that you have. And you're just going to click on the presentation that you want to use and hit Select. And what that should do is open up a little preview of the different slides in that presentation. And I'm just going to click slides 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, because those are my product slides. And then I'm going to uncheck this box for Keep Original Theme. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the information from those slides, but it's going to make those slides match the slides we're working on right now. I'll go ahead and click Import Slides. And you can see those slides are now part of our new presentation, but they have all of the colors and the fonts of this new presentation instead of the previous one. If you had left that box checked with Keep Original Formatting, they would look exactly the same as your original presentation. I'm going to go ahead and use my section header then to make another section, and I'll just duplicate that slide. So click on it, right click, duplicate, and I'm going to drag and drop that down here at the end. And I'm going to talk about our process instead of our products. Now, before I go into adding some additional slide content, did we have any questions about importing slides and bringing in that information or videos?
Do you think you could repeat how to insert that YouTube video? Do we have enough time for a little review of that?
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and insert a blank slide here underneath, and I'll just delete this box out of the way. So we have a slide to work with. So we're going to go under Insert, and then we're going to choose Video, and that will give you your options. So in this case, I searched for baking cake. I could search for puppies if I wanted to. And choose the video that I want, click Select, and that is going to put the video into your slide. And then the video format options will pop up automatically where you can choose how the video plays. And then to clip it, you can just type in your start and end time for how much you would like. I'll close that. If for some reason you had closed that box and all you were seeing was your video and you didn't have those options, just click on format options and you can get all of that back again.
Okay, and then one more question in the chat. On your slides, the white boxes that surround your text, is that because the first slide has a white box around products? And what can you do to get rid of the white box? Or is that just part of the layout?
This is actually part of the theme. So if I go back to my theme builder, you can actually see when I click on those slide previews, that's part of the design that they've put together in this particular theme. And that's why that white box is showing up. So if I wanted that to look different, I would need to customize here in the theme builder and get rid of some of those options. So it's nothing, it's just how they designed that theme. It's nothing that we specifically did as part of importing or putting in that information, if that makes sense.
I believe that does, and that covers all the questions we have right now. Thank you.
No problem. So we'll pop back down to our process here so that we can add another slide in. Once again, I'm just going to click that little plus sign to add a new slide. And I'm going to do a different layout. So once again, I'll go ahead and click on the layout. And this time I'm going to do just that title only, because it gives me space to put a title in, but then a lot of space to work with. And I'm going to click and add my title in. And this time I'm going to add a diagram. And just like we've been inserting pictures and videos, we're going to get to that from the insert menu. So I'm going to choose insert. And this time I'm going to choose diagram, and it'll bring up different diagrams that I can work with. And for this one, I like the timeline diagram. And then it'll let me choose how many dates or steps that I want. I'm going to go ahead and choose 6. And I could also choose to do a different color, and I'm just going to choose that purple because that matches the rest of our slides. And then you'll see I've got some different layouts that I can choose from. And I like this one with the circles here. So I'm just going to click on that. And that gives me a diagram that I can work with. And I'm just going to close that box there so that I have more of my workspace. And then each of these boxes in here, I can just click in and put in information. And it's really easy for me to put in whatever I wanted to highlight. Now, just because we're running a little bit short on time today, I'm not going to go all the way through putting in content for each of these. I'm just going to do this first one here to show you what it would look like. So I would just go ahead and highlight my information. And here you'll also see that you have some options for auto fitting if your text was not fitting in the box. What Autofit does is it automatically makes sure that it resizes to fit that window. And you can turn that on or off depending on how you feel about it. So you can see I can click in each one of these boxes and just put in the different information that I need, and that will update that diagram for me. If you have downloaded today's course handout, you'll see instructions in there to fill out the rest of these steps. But like I said, we're going to go ahead and keep going today so we can get to the rest of our content. Now, the last thing I want to do is add one more slide that will be able to demonstrate how we insert charts. So I'm going to go ahead and do that new slide. I'm going to go ahead and change that layout. And this time I'm just going to use the caption layout just for something different. Puts it down on the bottom instead of up at the top. And we're going to do our annual sales. Now, let's say that I have a chart that I want to work with. Say I worked in Google Sheets and put together some nice charts and diagrams. I can actually pull that into my Google Slides presentation. And I'll go under Insert, Chart, and then I have some different options. Now, the first option that you see here, the bar, the column, the line, the pie, that would be if you wanted to make a chart from scratch while you were building your presentation today. If you choose that From Sheets option, just like we imported slides, we can import information from an existing spreadsheet. So you'll select the spreadsheet that you want, and it will look through here and see, oh, where do I have numbers that I want to include? And let's just say I want to include that first product sales chart. I'll go ahead and click import, and it will drop that chart right into my presentation. Now you might notice up here that there's this little paperclip thing, and that's where you have the option to link your chart. And what that does is it lets you automatically update your data in Google Sheets and then carry those updates over into your Google Slides presentation as well, because they're joined together. And that way you don't have to worry about making the updates in multiple places. Are there any questions about inserting our content or working with our slides?
There are no questions at this time.
All right, well, we're almost ready to present, but before we do that, we're going to do just a few little formatting tweaks. And these are some things that I can do to make presenting my slideshow a little bit more dynamic. I can add transitions to each slide or apply unique transitions to each element on the slide just to make things kind of move and animate. You might notice up here on slide number 3 that it's got those 3 little circles going on. That lets me know that there's an animation of some kind on there. I've got a video here that's going to play. I'm going to go all the way up to my title slide and add transitions to my presentation. So I'll go ahead and click on slide, and then I'm going to click on transition. And here I've got my slide transition options. Right now I've got none. I can click on that drop down and choose whichever one appeals to me. And it also gives me the option to do slow, medium, or fast. I can change the timing on it. And all I need to do is hit apply to all slides. And now that transition is on every single slide in my presentation. Now, let's say that you want to add some object animations in as well. So a slide transition, which I'll just play that so you can see it, is what happens as your slide is coming on or off the screen. Object animations refer to the individual elements on your slide. So your text, your images, your videos. So I'm going to go over here to my objective slide, and I'm going to go ahead and add in that animation. So I'll click on the title of that slide and just choose add animation. And I can use that drop down to choose something that I like, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it with on click. You could also have it do automatically after previous with previous if you wanted to have some transitions that you didn't need to click through on your own. And then I want to go ahead and do my text. So I'm going to add a second animation. And I'll go ahead and just do that up here, animation again. Now you'll see I also have this option to do by paragraph. When I click that, what it does is it breaks up each piece in the paragraph. So each one of those lines will come in individually. So my slide will come in, I would click, have my title, I would click again, get my first point, click again, to get my next point, and so on. That just lets me break it up so I don't get all of the text on the screen at once. And you can use that play button at any time to preview the animations that you have applied. Now, one other thing to note about your slideshow. Underneath your slides towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see a spot where it says click to add speaker notes. And this is where you can include additional content that maybe you want to talk about or cues to go along with your slides that you don't necessarily want to appear on the screen. These can be displayed while you're presenting, but they're not visible to your audience. And I'm just going to add a note in here just as a demonstration. To remind me that I want to make that point. And you'll see what that looks like in just a minute. Do we have any other questions on transitions, slide content, or anything about building our presentation before we talk about presenting?
We have no questions at this point.
All right, so the last thing that we want to talk about today is how to present and share our slideshow once we've put it together. So once my slideshow is complete, I'm ready to present it to an audience. And I have 3 different options from the menu on the left side of my screen. I've got present right here, which will just present from the current slide. I can also choose present from beginning to start from the very first slide. And then I have an option for presenter view to access speaker notes and the audience Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my speaker view. So this window here is what pops up if you have your presenter view showing. And what you see is you've got your current slide, you can see the previous slide, you can see what's coming next. This is also where you can see those speaker notes that you put in, and you also have a timer that lets you know how long you've been on that slide. So if you know you're on a time deadline, it's an easy way to keep track of how long you're talking. You also have some options under your audience tools. And you can use this to do audience Q&A. So I have this option to start new. And what you will see is that it gives me an option to accept questions from the audience. And I can turn that on or off with that slider. But I can see right here that I've got a lovely little URL that tells me what website my audience would go to if they wanted to put in questions. And I can actually click on that and go to the questions if I wanted to. And it would look like this slide here. And you can see these are the questions. You can see someone else putting in a question. Now let's take a look at what that looks like to me actually presenting my slideshow. So right now I've got this blank slide. I've got the ask a question that the audience can see. Let me switch back to my presenter view. And I see, oh, hey, I've got some questions in here, and I would just choose present, and over on my slideshow, now I can see for everyone, it's displayed what the question is. They can see the question and I can answer the question as part of my presentation. Once I feel like I've addressed the question, I can go back to my presenter view and I would just choose hide. And I could do that for the next question that came in and continue on, present it to my audience, show them what the question is, answer it, hide it, and move on. Now, your users will have the option when they are asking questions. They will actually have that option to ask as themselves if they're signed in, or they can check that box for ask anonymously if they don't want anyone to know who's asking the question. And that's just a way to make your slideshow a little bit more dynamic when you're presenting, give you that audience engagement, let people participate in a slightly different format. I'm going to go ahead and exit my presentation here so that we can talk about sharing and collaborating with our file. So sharing your files does allow you to collaborate with other users to make changes, to update the content, and work together. And with Google Slides, multiple users can edit at the same time, and you can see those changes as they happen. Google does limit the number of simultaneous editors to 100 people, but that's still a pretty good way for you to get a group of people working together on a project, especially if you're working in multiple locations. So in the top right corner, I have a button that says Share, and that will open up my sharing menu. I can share with people in groups by just typing in the different email addresses. I can put in a message and go ahead and send that file to them. I do need to choose their level of permissions. So I can give them viewing rights, commenting rights, or editor rights. If I give someone viewing rights, that means they can see what I've done, but they can't actually make any changes to the document at all. If I give them commenter rights, that means they can add comments into my presentation, but they can't change the actual presentation itself. And if I give them editor rights, they can edit and update with full permissions. They can add content, they can delete content, etc. I also have the option to send that by a link, and I would just do copy link, and I could copy and paste that into an email. And I have the options of either making it restricted that only somebody who has been added to my document can use that link, or I can make it that anyone who has that link can get in and view the file. And that's just a way for you to be able to share your content. If you were working together and needed to add comments into a document, you can do that. You've got the little comment button up here at the top, looks kind of like a speech bubble, and you could just click add comment and add your comment in, and other users can see that. And then you would have the option to reply, or you could go in and delete the comment once you had taken care of whatever it was. Now, the last thing I want to talk about today is printing and downloading your file if you need it. Since Google Slides does share your work in the cloud, you always have access to the most current copy of your presentation when you access that file online. But it might be useful for you to print a copy of your notes or download your presentation in a different format. And I can do that by just doing File and going down to my print settings. And this just gives me the option to change how things print. I can choose different layouts. Maybe I want to make it a handout with multiple slides per page. I can choose portrait or landscape. And then I have the option to download as a PDF or print that document. We'll go ahead and close that preview. I might also just want to download a copy of the presentation. Same thing, I'd go under File, Download, and then I have options. I can download as a PowerPoint presentation and I could present it that way. I could download a PDF of my presentation and have just a copy of those slides to refer to. If needed, I can also use those image options to download individual slides as images as well. And this file menu is also where you could email that file to other users if needed as well. Are there any final questions before we wrap up today?
I'm going to give it just a few moments, but right now the chat is clear. We have a question. Does the program save automatically?
Yes, Google Slides is a cloud-based program, so it does save automatically while you're working. Up here at the top, you see that little cloud with a check mark. That just lets me know that all of my changes have been saved while I'm working. And you'll periodically see that circle and that check mark reappear as it updates when you make changes.
Okay, thank you. That appears to be all of our questions.
All right. Well, thank you for joining our class today. This does conclude our class on Google Slides and was the fourth and final class in our Google Suite series. Before we go today, I do want to share just a few more library resources with you. If you want to continue expanding your Google Suite skills, you do have access to LinkedIn Learning with your library card, and you can learn more about how to navigate the different Google applications, including several great tutorials on tips for Google Slides. If you would like more one-on-one help from one of our librarians, about 30 minutes to go over your specific questions, we can do that as well, and you can schedule time with our Book a Librarian service. You'll find links to these resources on our website, www.planolibrary.org. Our blog, Plano Library Learns, also includes book lists, program recordings, and other useful information. You will be able to view past program recordings on our YouTube channel as well. Programs in the Google series are generally under either adult learning or business and career skills. The recording from today's class will be available in a few days as well. You should receive a link to that recording via email, and you can access our course handouts and resources via our Google Drive at any time. As you leave today, please do take a moment to complete our program survey, which should pop up automatically. Thank you again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.